Hello, my name's Elijah Wells, and today I want to talk about the Netflix Warner Brothers merger that has been completely all over the news in the past couple of days, particularly that Netflix has brought the streaming business and the filming business of Warner Brothers to a tune of between $72 billion to $83 billion. And of course, it's got a lot of people absolutely panicking off their asses at the moment. Not just, of course, the legal implications this has, but also the impact that it will have on like cinema releases, physical media releases, and of course, we're also going to look at Warner Brothers' past failed mergers, and of course, who's benefiting out of this at all. So, in this video, I'm going to break down all of this, what's happened with the merger, and of course, discussing what the antitrust laws are going to be like, and the effect it could have on like cinemas, physical media, and Warner Brothers' history with mergers, and of course, who's going to be benefiting from all of this. So, what are antitrust laws, and what are the legal implications about the Netflix Warner Brothers merger? To understand what antitrust laws are, it's basically promoting and protecting competition in a marketplace, regardless of what industry it is. So it's basically, in a way, it goes out of its way to avoid monopolies and have companies merge into each other in a more easy way. So basically, this is their worst nightmare at this point. So of course, not just the US government is going completely haywire about this, because it's basically, we're going to have one less studio by probably the end of next year, or even by the end of this year, because even though some people have criticized antitrust laws for doing very little in a way of like past mergers, particularly when Warner Brothers has brought like New Line Cinema, or when Disney brought 20th Century Fox, which later became 20th Century Studios, or even the past mergers of Warner Brothers, which I'm going to discuss a lot later. People are, of course, are a little bit worried about it, because it's not just a case of is the antitrust laws are going to get in the way of the merger, or they're just going to give Netflix a free pass and say, yeah, you can do what you want. And of course, not just the antitrust laws are pretty much have been ringing alarm bells at this point, but also the director guilds and the writer guilds have, of course, said some alarm bells saying, okay, we do not want this. Or more specifically, at the Directors Guild, which is fronted by Christopher Nolan, who's very out in the open that he prefers a cinematic experience rather than ones on streaming, and also particularly in his Oppenheimer promo tour, he spoke very positively about physical media, particularly in the 4K Blu-ray disc, which he has boasted about quite a lot again during that moment. But also it did seem to have a lot of bizarre and almost horrifying implications. It's particularly the Directors Guild did write a statement saying, "We believe in a vibrant and competitive industry, the one that fosters creativity and encouraged genuine competition for talent. It's essential for safekeeping and safeguarding careers and creative rights of directors and their teams, and we'll be meeting with Netflix to outline our concerns and better understand their vision for the future of the company. While we undertake our due diligence, we will not be commenting any further," which, again, even though they are, of course, expressing a lot of concerns, and this is definitely something that Christopher Nolan may have penned, because he is definitely now the head of the Directors Guild of America, even though he has his upcoming movie, The Odyssey, that comes out next year, so I might check that out. But however, the Writers Guild, which if you may have heard of from a couple of years ago from the strikes, have also made a lot more seriously written statement, particularly so with this one, saying the world's largest streaming company swallowing one of the biggest competitions is what antitrust laws are designed to prevent. The outcome would eliminate jobs, push back wages, and worsen conditions for all entertainment workers, raise prices for consumers, and reduce the volume and diversity of content for all viewers. The industry workers, along with the public, are already impacted by the very few powerful companies maintaining a tight control over what consumers can watch on television, streaming, and in theaters. This merger must be stopped. But also, even the government has also stepped in, or members of both hopefully the the government as well as the opposition, more specifically Elizabeth Warner, who's the Democratic senator for Massachusetts, and she calls it an anti-monopoly nightmare, and she elaborated a lot more further, saying that the Netflix Warner Brothers would create one massive media giant with a control close to half of the streaming market. As I mean by that, Netflix owns Netflix, of course. Warner Brothers owns HBO Max, which is again, they're basically merging two massive streaming contents. But however, people say, ooh, we're getting more content. But however, she does elaborate more further. Like, it's threatened to force Americans into higher subscription prices, fewer choices of what over what and how they watch, and while putting American workers at risk, particularly cinema workers like myself, who unfortunately I did lose my job because my cinema did close down this year, being View Cambridge, which was at Grafton Centre. Again, I do empathise quite a lot with the concerns of the cinema workers, particularly not just in North America, but all around the world that could be deeply troubled and, if not really deeply affected by this. They could lose their jobs over this merger. They could probably be surviving paycheck to paycheck, and this could all come to an end due to this merger. And of course, her views were also shared by Pramila Payapal, who's the co-chair of the House Monopoly Busters caucus. She wrote in a very damning letter saying that it would mean more price hacks, more ads, more cookie cutter content, less creative control for artists, lower pay for workers, and she said the media industry is already controlled by a few corporations with too much power to censor free speech. The government must step in, which, again, even Donald Trump, even though as of when I'm recording this video, he hasn't said anything specifically, but however, when the merger was of course picking up some attraction, particularly with Paramount Skydance or just Paramount Pictures, but why I say that, because earlier this year the merger happened, although a much smaller one in my opinion, being Skydance being made by David Ellison, who's the son of Larry Ellison, merged with Paramount, and of course they formed the company being Paramount Skydance, but people just call it Paramount. And of course Donald Trump backed Paramount to buy Warner Brothers, particularly so that Larry Ellison is pretty much a huge supporter of Donald Trump and have been very close friends for a while now. And of course, he's threatened to get the Department of Justice to be involved in this, but I'm not sure to what extent it's happening. I'm not sure it's due to political favors or, like I said earlier, the effects it will have on the average American cinema worker or something like that. But again, this is opening like a full-blown Pandora's box of what could actually happen next. Again, even on the legal side of things, things are already looking incredibly bleak. Now, we're going to discuss about what effect the merger will most likely going to have on the physical media side of things. Like, even though I've done a video essay a couple of years back demonstrating why buying physical media or physical copies of films are very, very important, and I did highlight a movie and a series that I really like that are Netflix originals in my country of the United Kingdom, particularly Annihilation, the Alex Garland directed, Natalie Portman starring sci-fi body horror movie, which I like. And of course the anime series I also do speak very highly of, particularly Violet Evergarden, which is a Netflix original in my country and presumably most of the rest of the world as well. And of course I got this on Blu-ray as well, as I mainly really enjoy that series quite a lot, and even like the movies as well, because they're amazing. And of course, physical media and streaming doesn't go really hand to hand at all. But what did surprise me the other day when I was just going around Tesco's doing some grocery shopping, and I did find on the little DVD case, on the little DVD pile, being F1, the Brad Pitt starring sports drama, directed by the guy who did Top Gun Maverick, and that did surprise me quite a bit because although this is done by Warner Brothers, of course, yes, Warner Brothers, and also by Apple Studios, like, yes, the same company that does like iPhones, but also they do have like a really fruitful like film studio as well. They did like Killers of the Flower Moon, they did Napoleon, they did Coda, that one. That's so far the only streaming movie to win Best Picture at the moment. But they didn't quite find quite a lot of success with films like Ghosted and Argyle. Again, a bit of a mixed bag right here. But what I did find interesting, that even though this movie made like $500 million in the box office, it still got a DVD release. Like, I'm not sure what. I'm guessing it was Apple that called the shots there. I'm guessing it was because it made quite a lot of money in the box office. I felt like, well, we can make more money from the physical media release, even though we don't know who buys it. But I didn't buy a DVD myself. I did, unfortunately, watch the film when it came out because, again, it was around the same time when my cinema was closing down, and I was kind of going through quite a lot at that moment. So I didn't end up watching it because I kind of want to clear my head for all of it. And also, what I did find a little bit more interesting when digging into the physical media side of things is that Criterion does step in quite a bit from here and there to deliver some Netflix originals to the physical media department as well. Particularly films like Roma by Alfonso Cuarón, Jane Champion's Power of the Dog, which is a film I really like, Bong Joon-ho's Okja, and Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story. Again, if you don't know what Criterion means, it's basically like really high-end, really probably the best quality of like DVDs, Blu-rays you can find, even though these are Blu-rays of like Brut Chevalier and Punch Drunk Love from P.T. Anderson. It's basically like the best of the market, really, when it comes to physical media. So much so they have like a huge social media presence at the moment where celebrities go into their closet and pick out a few of their favorite films off the closet. I brought like Brut Chevalier because it looks so beautifully shot, and I did like the idea of a alienated French military person in Djibouti, and of course Punch Drunk Love because I absolutely adore One Battle After Another being one of P.T. Anderson's films. So might want to check these two films out, but I will do another video in the future where I divulge into Criterion films. Again, if I buy more. Again, they cost like £18, so not exactly the most accessible choice for consumers, since a lot of DVDs cost like £10 and Blu-rays are usually a little bit more expensive, but I have a pretty decent Blu-ray collection in itself already. But again, and also Guillermo del Toro, who's recently released his Frankenstein movie on Netflix, also had Pinocchio, which came out on physical media, again through these Criterion DVDs. What I found very interesting, I remember there was an old article that came out about Mark Flanagan, you may know from the director of Life of Chuck, but he also had a pretty well-known history with Netflix with Hush, Gerald's Game, and Before I Wake, and also did direct some stuff that did, of course, end up in cinemas, physical media, like Doctor Sleep as well. He did said something about Netflix's weird relationship with DVDs, particularly even though, yes, Netflix did start as a DVD postal company where they would send you a DVD, you watch your DVD, then once you're finished with it, you can post it back and they send you another one until your subscription kind of stops. But what I found interesting is that Mark Flanagan did say in this interview about Netflix's weird relationship with DVD, saying, "I tried very hard to get them to release my work on Blu-ray and DVD. Netflix refused at every turn. It became very clear very fast that their only priority are subscribers, and that they were very actively hostile to the idea of physical media. This is a very dangerous point of view. While companies like Netflix pride themselves on being disruptors and having proven they can effect great change in the industry, but they sometimes fail to see the difference between disruption and damage. So much so they can find themselves, intentionally or not, doing enormous harm to the very concept of film improvisation. Again, even though the article from World of Real does divulge into another article that was released earlier about Ted Sarandos, the CEO of Netflix, just having a full-blown tantrum, being like, Barbie and Oppenheimer would be successful if we released it on our platforms. Where? I hate cinema. Just another one of his full-blown tantrums, being, I hate cinema, blah, blah, blah. Look at me, blah. Which is, again, a little bit of a very concerning and somewhat of a telling sign that they want subscribers. Even though, yes, you could actually be, if you're a CEO of a massive media company, guess what, you could still be making money off these, even though they may not be as big money as they were like 10, 20 years ago, but they're still money. But again, they could be doing more damage to a lot more sectors than just cinema, but also the physical media market, like Mark Flanagan said, which is, again, a deeply horrifying and deeply concerning sign in of itself, even though they do very rarely do it. But again, I can understand that they don't want to do physical media on everything they do. Like, I don't imagine people like wanting to buy a DVD or Blu-ray of, is this cake or not by Marky Day or something. But at the same time, I do want to buy like a Blu-ray or something. Like, I don't know, maybe Violet Evergarden or Annihilation, or again, something that's out there like Roma or Irishman, which is both on the Criterion list, or something like maybe Emilia Perez, even though not a lot of people like that film, or something like All Quiet in the Western Front from the same guy who did Conclave, Edward Berger, which is again very interesting because I did make that video on the sole purpose that this is a better preservation of media than what you can find online, because you can have it without any ads, without any monthly costs, without any price hikes, and of course you own this forever. Well, for Netflix, they can just probably randomly take it off or just bury it somewhere, which is, again, not something that I ideally support as a film goer. Now, in this part of the video, I'm going to demonstrate the major impact this merger is going to have, not just what I've already stated on the physical media and the legal side of things, but of course what's everyone's biggest concern on their minds is what's going to affect the theatrical experience, what's going to affect the cinema experience. Particularly, I did find this article by Variety, which does talk in great detail about the major concerns, and of course pinpointing all the past controversies Netflix has had with cinemas, not just around the world, but more specifically in America, in my opinion. But of course, the one thing I did find, the couple things I did stood out to me is saying that publicly, Netflix has stressed that it expects to be releasing films theatrically, but on a call with investors and press on Friday, shortly after the sale was announced, Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos didn't exactly give a ringing endorsement to the theatrical experience, even as he promised the commitments that Warner Brothers has been made to release upcoming films in cinemas would still be honoured, particularly with films like Supergirl or something like that. Again, that's one of the films I'm definitely looking forward for coming next year. And of course, he also did say that I wouldn't change this as a thing we approached for Netflix movies or for Warner Brothers films. I think over time the window will evolve to a much more consumer friendly and able to meet audience where they are quicker. But again, he's talking about the famous 45-day window, which again the article did say it used to be before COVID, it was like 90 days, but the full paragraph did say during the pandemic many of these studios had shortened the amount of time that movie screens exclusively were in theatres. Before COVID, most of the films stayed in theatres for 90 days before debuting on home media like streaming or physical media. Now some theatrical releases are available to buy or rent within a few weeks. Exhibitions executives fear that Santos, as far as shorten the windows and consequences might as well be dire. What he's saying by that is, he says that 45 days was out of step and wasn't consumer friendly, but however, if he looks out the window, there's films like Wicked Part 2 or Wicked for Good, Zootopia, which did open for both open around Thanksgiving time, and of course going to be around particularly for just after Christmas, and particularly there's the Avatar movie that's coming out in a couple of weeks' time. Even though they're not there for like a couple of weeks because they've been there for a couple of weeks, and most likely, given how really successful they were in the box office, they're going to be there again after Christmas. And given the three films have already made huge amount of money, well, Avatar's not out yet, but I'm just going to take bets it's going to make $1 billion in the box office regardless. Again, it does take time to make loads of money if you want to have billions. Like, I feel like Ted Sarandos is that type of person who wants to make sure that yes, you can come out of cinemas, but only for 2 weeks. Like, I feel like it's a weird way of saying yeah, we support cinema experience, but on our terms only. Again, with Zootopia and Wicked, Avatar, which again, the reason they are such big hits is just because they were. Audience keep coming back for it, and people are coming back for seconds, and of course people are coming out maybe a week later or a couple of weeks later due to word of mouth, or just because of how big it was, like sharing a whole room with 4 strangers watching probably the biggest film at the moment. Of course, it does divulge a little bit more in the box in that side of things, particularly in the article where it does discuss Netflix's history with cinemas. Like, however, many of these films, such as House of Dynamite with Eddie Murphy or Jay Kelly with George Clooney and Adam Sandler, did show on 100 screens, not thousands of screens, like a typical wide release. They debuted in cinemas to qualify for the Oscars, but exhibitors did arrange for that arrangement, since Netflix usually only takes 35% of the ticket sales compared to other major studios that will take 50 or 60% on bigger releases. Even though, yes, there have been a lot of occasions where Netflix did show cinemas, but back in the early days when Roma or Beast of No Nations came out, I was a little bit curious of like, oh, when's this come? Where's the new cinema showing it? It was like the furthest away cinema you can get. Like, it was all the way in London. Like, for context, I live in Cambridgeshire, so I didn't want to go on like a 2-hour trip just to go to a cinema. Even though they did improve slightly, gradually, particularly not just the recent Knives Out sequel, Wake Up Dead Man is currently showing at the Picture House in Cambridge. Frankenstein has got a pretty wide release, and even my local cinema in Ely, K-pop Demons Hunters, did show up for 2 weeks only, one during the summer holidays when it became the biggest Netflix film ever, like how many people were watching it, and of course it got showed up for Halloween particularly. A lot of people were dressing up for Halloween, and the film was charting everywhere, and the songs were charting on Billboard Hot 100. Like, it was definitely one of the biggest films of this year, no doubting about it. But it did say, like, even though we demand lower from like cinemas compared to other studios being 35%, but we only do it on a smaller scale, which again makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, you can still show your films on like, hey, Netflix, don't worry, you can still show your films in cinemas, even if you keep sticking to that 500, like 35% of the ticket sales. But I don't imagine you're going to show completely everything that Netflix has to offer. Like, I don't know, Trainwreck documentaries or that Amy Schumer movies, like Defrosted or Kinda Pregnant, which I don't know anyone has actually watched it. But again, I feel like it's going to be either like more critically acclaimed stuff like House of Dynamite, Jay Kelly, or Frankenstein, or definitely the more popular stuff like Knives Out or K-pop Demon Hunters. Like, I imagine if Netflix changes their mind and follows a more theatrical route, I'm guessing it's going to be split into 2 categories, being films that are definitely really popular, like K-pop Demon Hunters and Knives Out, Wake Up Dead Man, and all more critically acclaimed stuff like Frankenstein and Jane Kelly or House of Dynamite, which is, again, of course, Netflix are pretty much very allergic to it. So much so that I wouldn't be surprised their new slogan being like, Netflix, killer of cinemas. But again, they did lighten up a titty bit, particularly when they're showing the final episode of Stranger Things on New Year's Day. But again, we'll just hope that is enough to change Netflix's mind. Now, in this section of the video, I found that probably the most interesting article I found during my research for this video is an article by a Hollywood Reporter. Particularly, it talks about the failed mergers that Warner Brothers had in the history. It's titled, It's Not You, It's WB, being Warner Brothers. A brief history of Warner Brothers' 21st century mergers and breakups. Particularly, the 3 mergers that ended up an absolute disaster for either Warner Brothers or the said merger. Particularly, it does talk about the 3 mergers, being the one being called the AOL Time Warner from 2001 to 2009, as it was basically AOL, if you're wondering, is back then a very famous internet service provider in the United States and was definitely big around that point. But however, as soon as that merger was announced, particularly in the year 2001, the dot-com bubble had burst, and of course, AOL definitely did slid down the rankings of like internet providers like Internet Explorer or Google or Firefox. Again, they were constantly slipping downwards and downwards before in 2008 they spun off from Warner Brothers and of course they spun off from their own company and they were bought by either Verizon, then Yahoo, which is again basically saying that we peaked too much, then we just slid down very gradually throughout the 2000s. Then there was AT&T and Warner Media, which is, again, a cable company. From reading of it, it's basically like a cable company that was also big. And also, they did take notes from Comcast when they collaborated with NBC Universal. So in 2008, they did come together, but however, things did not go well. From 2018 to 2021, it was hit with losses and COVID-19, and of course, there was constant corporate overhaul, and what basically might be the straw that broke the camel's back was the HBO thing, where back in 2021, in the midst of COVID, Warner Brothers was announcing that all films were going to be in cinemas and on streaming, which turned out to be a monstrous disaster. Like, films were like reporting losses, and films were not doing as big in the box office as I hoped. So much so that even the Matrix sequel, Matrix Resurrection, ended up doing so poorly in the box office. Not just Village Roadhouse went bankrupt, but even at one point, even under producer legal action, considering how poorly the movie did in the box office, and saying that that deal just completely set the films up to fail in the box office. Then we have the most recent example being Warner Bros. Discovery, which is started from 2022 to most likely ending in 2026, or maybe before Christmas. But I'm going to take bets it's going to be after Christmas where this whole deal comes together. Particularly, it has the very controversial CEO of Discovery, David Zaslav, who would just say is not exactly the most well-liked CEO, particularly in recent memory. But however, given his major portfolio as a mogul in the TV industry, and of course his major involvement in Hollywood as well, and wanting to merge his streaming site being Discovery Plus, then of course putting out with Warner Brothers and putting all of Discovery with him, thus creating Warner Brothers Discovery. But unfortunately, things did horribly wrong. Not just a lot of films were being written off or completely erased from streaming sites like Batgirl, which now is no longer going to see live data anymore. But of course, his alleged mistreatment of like animated series, particularly of like Infinity Train, which got completely erased off the platform, has still not seen the live day since. And of course, there was the huge strike, which again with AOL, with the Rise strike in 2008, but this one, it was a lot bigger because it involved actors, and of course, it just did not make Warner Bros. In a good light. And making things from bad to pretty worse for the studio, HBO Max was getting rebranded to an almost comedically constant rate, as in it was HBO Go or HBO Max or HBO or Max or HBO Max. Like, they were like, it was almost like a revolving door of like what name it's going to be for HBO Max. I think everyone just stuck to the HBO Max thing because maybe it just sounded a lot better. But it did go to show that Warner Brothers is not going to have the most long history with mergers, unless this is fourth time lucky, where this is going to go on for a long period of time. Even though these mergers, the longest they've lasted was 8 years. Like, I could give Netflix a matter of doubt, being like, okay, I'll give you 5 years, I'll give you 10 years, and see how you go from there. Like, again, something I did find a bit worrying, particularly for Netflix's half. Like, Warner Brothers is just going to survive this, regardless if the merger fails, like the 3 other ones. But what's it going to be for Netflix? Again, for the final section of this video, I'm going to do something which is, who's benefiting out of this? Like, is Warner Brothers going to benefit out of this? Like, maybe, because they had like 3 failed mergers, but what about Netflix? Like, did they have like a merger history? If so, were they successful in it? So, yeah, they attempted a merger with Blockbuster. As in, Blockbuster had a chance to buy off Netflix for $50 million in the year 2000, but they were laughed out of the room, particularly in this article where it did talk about Mark Randolph and his friend Reed Hastings, who basically both founded Netflix, and they both released a book called That Will Never Work, The Birth of Netflix and the Amazing Life of an Idea. Particularly how they started off basically as a mailing CD company that barely survived the dot-com crash or the dot-com bubble burst. So they so they had a meeting with the then head of the CEO of the Blockbuster company, which unfortunately completely went under, being John Antico. Particularly, they had this very interesting idea, being that we will run the online part of our combined business. You will focus on the stores, the you being Blockbuster, and we will find a synergy that will come from the combination that will truly be a case for the whole thing being greater than just sum of parts. But again, the CEO of Blockbuster, Mr. Antico, was not impressed. Again, he did say that the dot-com burst was just overblown. Of course, having an online business was particularly around that point where it was kind of a new thing. He did say it was not at all sustainable, which again was a bit of a sign of where Blockbuster would unfortunately go, as in bit over a decade later, they filed for bankruptcy and pretty much all closed all but the one store in Bend, Oregon, as in it's so much so it's now pretty much became a glorified tourist destination, not something you can find at a high street like, I don't know, Boots or CEX or a charity shop or something. Again, it got so bad that the CEO of Blockbuster just laughed them both out of the room, and they were both scrambling for ideas like, okay, what are we going to do now? So of course they said, you know what, screw it, we're doing it on our own, and eventually we'll roll out streaming, which again I actually need to get that book because it was very interesting. Even though they had that one merger, but the person that was kind of interested just said, no, we're not interested, so get out of our building. And of course, guess what happened? The company Blockbuster went bust, and it's now basically a relic of the 90s, 2000s era. But maybe it could have a comeback. Who knows? For the physical media junkies like me. But however, it did give me a slightly different angle. Like, is streaming dying? Like, even though, again, this is 2020s, like, this could be the decade of streaming, but what about 2030s? Like, could it be when streaming comes back? Could it be when physical media does come back in a big way and a big new blockbuster will come up, or CEX does world domination, or HMV? But it did give me a slightly interesting look, particularly what's happening with Spotify at the moment. Even though, yes, everyone has their little Spotify rap, like, I listen to a lot of MA3, I listen to a lot of Christine and the Queens, I did listen to quite a lot of stuff back in the year. But what I found pretty interesting is that it did not include, like, Godspeed You Black Emperor, particularly this beautiful album, Lift Your Skinny Fist Like a Tennis to Heaven, because, I don't know, they removed their music off Spotify. Reason being is particularly that Spotify has gone into a huge amount of trouble, particularly in the last couple of months, particularly that the military investment that was made by CEO of Spotify, David Icke, particularly for his investment to find Prima Materia, which has been investing in Helsing, a defense company that sells software that uses AI to inform military decisions. Of course, apparently that company has like some ties to the Israeli army, aka the Israeli Defense Forces, and of course they did not take very lightly to that decision. So much so they pretty much erased their entire music catalog from online, like Spotify, Tidal, Amazon Music, and apparently they still have it on Apple Music, but some sources say they're completely off it. But however, it can still be purchased on Bandcamp, which is the same thing like Radiohead's In Rainbows. It's online and you can pay whatever you want for it, even for free. Even though I got this online, I think eBay maybe, and it's still one of my personal favorite albums, particularly of how very outbody and very noisy and very intense it is, particularly, which is something I'm very into, like something that's pretty eerie and provocative at the same time without saying too much, which is essentially a Godspeed You Black Emperor record, which is a Canadian post-rock band, which I really like. And also, they're not even the only band that did it, like Juju and Deerwolf and King Gizzard Electric Wizard have all removed their music off Spotify. And also, Massive Attack, known for like Blue Lines and Mezzarine, which has some of their most famous songs being like Angel, and of course Teardrops, which you may remember being the theme tune for that Hugh Laurie show, House MD. Particularly, they did say the same things about Spotify being the AI investment of Helsing and David Icke's involvement of that. and saying, okay, we are going to be removing our music at that point because we just don't want to be having that in there. Particularly, let's say something like a song like Big Will, the hymn of Big Will from the Blue Lines album, which is talks about climate change and pretty much the worsening effect it has on the planet. And of course, the streaming platform you're listening it off is now investing in the AI military. Or there's also that music video they did with Rosamund Pike called Voodoo in My Blood with Young Feathers, which has Rosamund Pike being assaulted by a robot, which again, pretty grim video, but I think it's pretty telling that they don't want to be associated with a streaming platform where its CEO is donating money to an AI military campaign that could essentially be killing like loads of people as we speak. And what about the one musician that that's never made put their music on Spotify, but however they done it like a full decade ago in 2015, particularly Johan Newsom, who made one of my favourite folk albums, YS or Wise, I don't know how you pronounce it, but he did say in a very damning and pretty telling interview, saying that Johan Newsom said that Spotify is a cynical musical hating system, the banana of the musical industry. I don't know why banana, I like bananas. It just gives off a view that it's just smells that something's wrong with it. Okay, maybe bananas do smell bad, but I do like bananas. And she also compared it that it's like a vendor's cable of the major labels, a business built from the ground up as a way to convey the idea of paying their artists. And also she's criticised further of Spotify's pretty abysmal like low payroll and of course making a lot of their money of like advertisements, and they don't really pay that artists that very little. And she also did point out that she does do Tidal, as in it does pay the artists a lot better. And she does understand it's great, but it's just... she did conclude saying, I understand why Spotify is great. I wish there was a way to provide a service that they provide and have nobody lose. Nobody may be victimized by that. It was around the point she released her most recent album, being 2015's Divers. Which again apparently got a lot of rave reviews, and of course I absolutely adore this album, even though I listen to this a lot on CD because I don't find it on Spotify, but I do totally understand her criticism, particularly how really poor the payroll is. But however, Netflix has improved the payroll, particularly to their writers and actors, particularly after the 2013 strikes, which was caused by that essentially, that they were paying very poorly about it. Even though I did say on my last video about the physical media that this stuff does pay for, let's say, their groceries or maybe their rent or mortgages, but it's definitely a lot better than a paycheck from streaming, which is, again, before strikes, apparently at one point, even just $20, just a monthly residual, according to, like, Orange is the New Black actress, which is, again... a little bit of a telling sign from what I said earlier. This could completely screw over like more creatives, not just actors and actresses, but also directors, writers, producers, or maybe even worst case scenario, the whole village of people that make your favourite series or your favourite shows or your favourite films or something. They could be paid even less or have their payments pretty much frozen, as in they only get paid just the same amount, even though it probably won't go up in accordance to inflation or something, or rising prices, which is again a deeply disturbing thought that probably may keep even me up at night. And also, Netflix is getting an unwanted amount of stigma at the moment, not just through the huge stereotypes of a Netflix film being like a lot of race swapping, which is again a lot of racist Twitter accounts saying like, oh, they're going to do this and that, even though Netflix has in real life has got in trouble with race swapping some major historical figures, even though some Twitter people have gone a bit too far of that. But also Netflix has got a lot more unwanted stereotypes, being like all their movies are basically just very colourless and very sloppy and just not very easy to look at, because all the movies look like a washing machine that's in mid-cycle, as in just very watery and very dark, very grey and very muddy to look at. And also all the films are spelled out for you, as in it's not just a case you have to figure it out on your own or you have to figure it out along with them. The characters have to narrate it out for you, like we're going to have to go to there, then we have to do this, then we have to do that. Like, it's pretty much dumbing the audience down to a point. It may be a film that plays in the background from idiocracy and trend chasing. Like, apparently, I remember years ago there was the Funko Pop movie going to be announced. Then more recently, a Lububu doll movie going to be announced. But however, Funko Pop is now being declared bankrupt, and I think no one's going to care about Lububu in 2 years' time. Like, I feel like it's chasing so much trends at such a point where you're going to ask yourself, like, is that going to make a film more dated or of its time? Like, let's make a movie about 6'7", but in like maybe like 20 years time, or when it could, or like 15 years time, or maybe when it has this IMAX re-release, or when someone looks back at it like, oh really, did we just make that a thing? Like, no one wants to have their trends be projected on the big screen, or have like some corporate big head being like, oh, let's make this a movie, or something like, remember Emoji Movie? Guess what? Everyone hated it. It did well enough in the box office, but it did win so many Razzies, and it was the last thing we ever heard from TJ Miller. And the other thing, not just the quality of the films they represent, but also the practices that Netflix does, which is, again, a lot of ads and a lot of price increases. Again, the reason I absolutely implore you to watch a lot of physical media and also buy it is that you pay only one time to buy these things, as in, okay, yes, maybe these Criterion films cost £18 a head. This is the one time you pay for them, and you can go home and just watch it over and over and over again. These ones, they pay like £10, £15. Guess what? You can watch it over and over again, and you only pay for them once. Or something like ads. Like, even though my family has chosen to go for ads for this time, but they get so annoying and repetitive. Like, oh, let's watch a movie about I don't know, deodorant or something. Or maybe, I don't know, when Violet Evergarden has like a PTSD meltdown, it gets broken up by a betting firm. Manchester United are going to win, I don't know, 3-0 against Wolves. And it just cuts back, like, it just completely kills the momentum all in all. But if you watch it like a Blu-ray like this, you see everything completely as it is. No ads, no interruptions. Even though for streaming, it used to be no ads or interruption, now it's just pure ads, pure interruption. So, what am I concluding from out of all the Netflix Warner Brothers merger? I feel like this is everything Netflix could be losing out of this. Like, this could be the moment where streaming could be seen as the uncool option, as in, it's so far now synonymous with price increases and ads and all that. But it's also Warner Brothers' failed mergers with AOL, AT&T, and Discovery. But also, people still value cinema releases. Not just, guess what? Warner Brothers did this year. Like, guess how successful Minecraft was? $1 billion. Guess what? It's still successful. And also something like Superman or F1 or even the more horror stuff that's surprisingly doing really well, like Sinners or Companion or Weapons, or even the more critically acclaimed stuff like Sinners again or One Battle Another, even though it wasn't the biggest box office success, but it's still a humongous critical success and could be a Best Picture winner against, I don't know, Sentimental Value or Hamnet or maybe Sinners again. But it goes to show that I feel like Netflix is trying to fly so close to the sun, and could be like Icarus, where it could burn all the way down to the ground and could die. Like Blockbuster, where they tried to laugh it off, and who knows, Department of Justice could get involved, and Donald Trump could be having his little tantrum as we speak, and could have the Elsons backed Paramount to buy Warner Brothers again. But who knows at this point? But at this moment, it's not looking the most brightest at this moment. Like, guess what? I'm going to still be going to a cinema, even if it's against Netflix's vision of having films released in like 2 weeks. Guess what? I'm going to still buy physical, even though Netflix is more concerned about having subscribers. Guess what? I'm not a customer. I'm a cinema goer. I'm a person who loves films. I am not a customer. I am not a subscriber. I am someone that just loves films as they are. So this is really becoming a test of if you're really a film buff or not. But guess what? Netflix has made great films as well, like Irishman, Roma, or something like films that I do like but everyone hates, like Emilia Perez. Again, this is going to be a weird time for cinema, but I'm going to give it 5-10 years. Either Netflix breaks apart, or streaming could completely die off, or something like in music, where Spotify could be on the way out, but who knows? We may not know what could happen now, but rest assured, cinema's not going to be the same again. But however, I'm still going to be watching cinema. I'm still going to be watching DVDs and Blu-rays. So take it as you will. So, what do you think of my 5 big concerns about Netflix and Warner Brothers merger? So, let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and Letterboxd, and this is Elijah Wells. And bye.